Okay, Harriet, my name is Steve Mitchell. You don't have to remember that. And this is, I'll let you introduce.
Debbie Bussinger of the Maps Air Museum.
Okay, and we're just going to ask you about your military service.
Oh,
Can you just tell me stories about what you did when you were in the military?
when from the beginning?
Sure, yes.
Oh, wait. Why didn't you warn me? And I thought about it last night. When I went into the military, a family helped me.
Well, tell me your favorite story about what happened to you while you were in the military.
When I first got into the military, I went into Fort Knox, Kentucky. I think, yes. No, yes, I went into Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I was besides myself. I didn't know what I was supposed to do or how. And then I went into uniform. I don't know just when. After I guess it was after I signed in to go into the Army.
Were you a nurse already?
Yes, I was a nurse from St. Francis Hospital in
Columbus.
No. Yes, Canton.
Okay. I forgot to ask you to say your name and spell your last name.
My name is Harriet Laubacher. Laubacher.
Okay.
I never was married, so that's my maiden name, my Christian name.
Okay. What do you remember what year you entered the Army?
After I finished nursing school,
Okay.
the war was still going on.
That was World War II?
Yes.
Okay. And where were you stationed during World War II?
Oh my goodness. Family, can you help me? I went in here
Okay. Did you go to Germany or France?
not during the war.
Okay.
After the war, I went to Germany.
What was that like?
Well, it was a wonderful experience because I'd never been any place in my life much. And of course I was alone. And it didn't take me long to learn to know other people in the service. And then we just got around, and I don't know what we did in our spare time. We didn't have much spare time because I think we worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that was at the top of the war, and it was quite busy. Everywhere you went, every hospital, and but I can't even remember the name of the hospital that I went into the first time.
Okay.
I graduated from St. Francis in Canton,
Okay.
and I went after that.
Okay. Can anybody in the family tell me where she was in Germany?
Oh, I know where I was in Germany.
Where were you?
Uh,
You can just talk to me. That's all right.
She was in Germany twice. She was in Japan twice. She was also in Korea.
Okay.
oh, that's right. I went to Korea, didn't I? before I went to Germany.
Was that during the Korean War?
No, that war was over, I think,
Yeah.
or hadn't begun, which
Okay.
I can't recall. But I was in Korea, and then I was in Japan.
Okay, let's go back to Germany. That was right after the war was over in Germany?
No, I hadn't gone to Germany yet. I think I went to Japan and Korea before Germany,
Okay.
and then went to Germany.
Was Japan first?
It's
No, Korea.
2 times in Japan, 2 times in Germany, once in Hawaii, once in Korea.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Korea.
There we
He knows better than I.
Okay. You were in Korea. Can you tell me about what you did in Korea?
Nursing.
Okay, were you in a big hospital?
It was a small. Oh, I don't know if it's. Well, it was a makeshift hospital because if the patients needed surgery or anything, they went to Japan.
And it was in a building. The hospital was a building?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's see, I went down over a hill. Yes, it was, because I lived up on a hill, and I went down the hill to go to the hospital, and that's where the chapel was.
Okay. What types of injuries did you take care of? What was it, just general?
For surgical, everything I did was in the surgical line. A lot of them were had already had their surgery and were recovering.
Okay.
And when they recovered enough, they went to Japan and then home. I don't know.
Okay. What did you do when you were in Japan? You were there for 2 years.
Nursing.
Okay. Was that a big hospital?
Pretty good size, yes. I can't tell you how long.
Okay.
This is too much of a surprise, you see. You didn't give me time to think about anything.
Oh, you're doing fine.
But the family can help me.
Yeah, they are helping me. Okay, I've got a list of where you were. It says in 1957 you were in Berlin.
Okay.
Again, you were in a hospital in Berlin?
Yes. Let's see. It wasn't much of a hospital, if I remember correctly. It was more of a tent, if I remember. I can't remember. Do you people remember?
Bad Kreuznach was what it was.
Huh?
She was at Bad Kreuznach?
Bad Kreuznach.
Okay, I've been there. I was in the military in Germany, so I can remember these names.
Where was I in Germany?
Somebody said you were in Bad Kreuznach?
Bad Kreuznach?
Okay, I was stationed in Kaiserslautern. I bet you know that town.
Yes. I don't know the town. I didn't move around any because I had no way, and I didn't think about it because we worked, I think, 12-hour shifts.
Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay, Bad Kreuznach.
When I was in Germany, oh, you're Bad Kreuznach.
Yeah.
What do you have on me
She
on
had a
bad
car when she
Kreuznach?
was in Germany.
She what?
She had a car when she was in Germany.
Oh, okay.
They shipped it over there.
All right.
Did I get a car in Germany?
You had a Buick.
Yeah, he says you had a Buick in Germany.
Oh, I must have bought it in Germany then.
Yeah. Um,
Or someone did.
yeah. What's your favorite memory of your service while you were in the Army? You have a favorite story you'd like to tell people?
I don't know that I had any favorite.
And Hattie, do you want to talk about Tony?
Oh, well, he was a patient. And
He had an injury.
he had injuries, but he was from England. And it's Tony Northmore. And he was a patient for a long time. And a wonderful, high-spirited young man who just didn't let his injuries
That was in Hawaii.
lay him down.
What were his injuries?
I don't remember. They had to be surgical because I worked only on the surgical wards.
Wasn't he a paraplegic?
Oh, yes, I guess he was a paraplegic. So he must have had a lot of injuries to make him so that he's not able to walk. And, but, you know, it's his spirits, and he never did walk, even when he went back home. But he was one of the finest men you want to meet, who always tried to get spirits up.
So he entertained the rest of the ward there?
Well,
or-
he seemed to. Well, the spirits seemed to be kind of higher, or I didn't have good sense. Maybe I expected something more than I got. I just took care of the patients and went along with them and tried to raise their spirits as much as I could.
Did you ever write home for any of them? Did you ever write any letters for them?
No, I didn't. I don't recall that I ever did. They did their own. And then they had civilians came in from outside. Girls, women who lived there on their time, they'd come in and they would help out with anything for the soldiers, for, you know, to get them oriented, well, to get more toward their homes, I think. This is such a surprise that I can't remember.
I'd like to ask the family if they remember stories she told, and maybe you can
Yes.
help us out here.
Yeah. Aunt Hattie, do you remember the story about meeting your brother Jim? He ended up at the same...
Oh, yes, my brother Jim was in the service, and we ended up, when he was in basic, I guess, and we met there, and that, of course, is wonderful when you're away from home for so long. And I can't remember, other than being so surprised and so, you know, I just was a great love for my family.
Was he a younger brother?
Yes, they were younger.
Okay. How many people were in your family?
Well, there were 11 of us children, I think. Correct me, kids.
Correct.
And, well, it was Dorothy, Earl, John, Vivian, then me, and Mary Catherine. No, Miriam. And then Mary Catherine and Chuck, Jim, and Fritz.
And
Did it-
Peg.
Peg.
This is Fritz.
And Peg.
Huh?
And Peg?
Oh, and Peg. Oh, for goodness sakes, yes.
And besides your one brother, did you have any other members of your family in the military?
Oh, Jim had been in the military. Chuck had been in the military. Now, don't ask me where or when. I don't think any one of us were over in the. Oh, Chuck, I think, was over when they were fighting.
Remember, Chuck got very sick.
Did Chuck get sick
Oh,
when
yes.
he was fighting?
Oh, I don't know if it was, maybe it was not from his fighting, but what did he catch? It was some fever or something.
Guillain-Barré disease.
Oh. Say that again?
Was it Guillain-Barré?
Guillain-Barré. And that was an unknown known, almost.
Now, why did you decide to join the military?
Well, I thought that, I don't know. I just think that that was the thing to do with all these brothers in there. And I just felt that that was my duty to do for my country, my family.
Did you know many other women who had joined the military?
At that time, I can't remember their names. Rose White was one name, but I can't think of their names right now.
And they were all nurses?
Yes, we all went in as nurses, so that made us second lieutenants as we went into the service.
Do you remember when you gained any of your other commissions, when you became first lieutenant and on the way up? Do you know what you had to do or what tests you had to pass, or was it just time
No.
in service?
I think it was whether it was time in service, I always did the best I could. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. And I don't remember, I think I just got my captain's after I was in as first lieutenant. Well, I went in as second lieutenant and then became a first lieutenant shortly thereafter because I had the degree, I had the nursing staff. I worked in the hospitals.
You
And,
became staff nurse, didn't you, Aunt Hattie?
Huh?
Staff nurse?
Yes, I guess that's what they called it, staff nurse. And I worked on the wards and some of them were sleeping on the floors and you had to take care of them. The hospitals were very inadequate, I should say, because of when they had the shower, they had to go out into another room. There was no heater extra. And the toilets were back there somewhere. And the nurses were just beyond it. The men's, they called them latrines.
Which hospital was that?
Well, I went in where did I go in? At Fort Knox.
Yeah.
And then I went to Fort Lee. Fort Lee, Virginia. And then I went overseas.
And were the patients sleeping on the floor overseas or in the United States?
Well, I think at the very beginning, there were a few that were just in cots. They weren't on the floor, they were in cots, but not beds. But when they got the things more settled, then they got beds for everybody. And I, before my time in the service, it was very much for men, because I don't think they even had women's bathrooms at the very beginning. I'm not for sure. You girls can help me if I say something wrong.
I think that's probably still true in some places, so.
That may be. And at the very beginning, I don't know why, it seemed like I went outside to go to the bathroom, but I can't remember whether it was when we were out hiking or just having a day off. But we didn't have many of those at first. Then after the war was over, well, I went in late in the war, and why didn't you bring me some stuff, you people from home, when you knew what was going to happen? I can't recall. I went in at Fort Knox, and then I went over to Fort Lee. I think I went to Fort Lee, Virginia, and then I went to Germany.
Korea.
Germany.
Did I go to Korea?
Germany?
Oh, yes. I was in Korea not too long, and then went back to Japan and spent more time in Japan. But I was in Korea for a while. And then I got an ear infection of some sort, and I moved over to Japan. And I remember it was a Sunday morning, and then I went to Mass, and who was the priest, but I knew him from back home.
Oh.
And when he turned around and saw me, the look on his face was such a surprise. And it was just in a little house. It was just maybe 12 people there. So he could see easy who it was. But I can still see the surprise on that priest's face. Can't remember his name, but he was wonderful. And I only stayed over in, that was when I first went from Japan. I went to Germany, from Japan, went to the United States because I had an infection in my ear that they couldn't seem to cure. And that's when I met the priest, and the war was still going on, I think, or maybe it was over by that time. But the boys were still coming back. And that was in California. And then I don't recall where I went from there. Can you people help me?
How did your parents feel about you joining the military? You know, a lot of mothers are sad or afraid for their children going off. How did your parents
Well, my
feel?
dad was gone. My dad had died. It was Mother And of course, I had brothers in there, Chuck and Jim were in the service, but I don't remember the onwards. I think Chuck was over in Japan, in Germany, and I think I met him in Germany. But he was on his way back to the States. And then, of course, I don't remember anything about that after they came back to the States. I just knew that Mother had a big family, and she worried herself sick about us. But I was in Japan. I was in Korea, and then from Korea I went to Japan. I don't know how long I was in Japan. Then I came back to the States. And I was at Fort Lee, I think. Fort Lee, Virginia. Correct me, folks.
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix, when I came back. I went into the service at Fort Lee. And then when I came back, I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey. I was there quite a while.
When you were in Korea, Japan, and Germany, did you work with any of the local people there?
Not well. They worked as aides and cleaning people, and they didn't do a lot of bedside nursing because at that time we had enough. Some of them did some bedside nursing, but in Japan,
An orphanage for limit.
they did some bedside nursing. But
When you were in Japan, did you work with a hospital for leprosy?
no, I didn't work with them. I visited. I don't think it was leprosy. Was it leprosy or?
Was it an orphanage?
Oh, well, the orphanages. Yes, we didn't visit so much as send money and clothing and things like that to the orphans. Someone would come, and the Red Cross was very active, and they helped us a tremendous amount of getting these things to the people that lived there. I can't. Seems like I was in somebody's home, but I can't remember much about it at all.
Did you have a place that was your favorite? One of your stations that you were at? Were you in Hawaii also?
Yes, I was in Hawaii. I got around in Hawaii quite a bit. But as nursing concerned, I can't say. Maybe Japan, because they were kids from the fighting and from Korea, and Korea was very poor. I just remember that I lived up on a hill. I had to go down steps to go to this little hospital. And I can't recall if that was a tent. But when you got inside, you don't think about that. You think about your patients and what you can do for them.
And were some of your patients the locals, not just the U.S. military?
No, they were very few locals. They helped in the hospitals. Yes, and some of them shouldn't have even been there. But You know, they'd come in half drunk or drunk, and then you would have to send them home. And but I, in Japan, I can't remember so much in Japan. I guess I wasn't there very long, and then I came back to the United States. And I was, of course, I had, a month at home before I was sent to Germany. No, I was not. I went Fort Dix, New Jersey, and Fort Lee, Virginia, and I can't recall just when I went to those two different stations.
Do you remember your hardest patient? Or the one that caused you most stress, or that was very sad?
Oh, no, because we got rid of them in a hurry. Yes, I've had some come in drunken, and you could say I could settle them down because I was big and strong and fat, and they listened to me. But I didn't have much trouble at all. I can't remember. Maybe there might have been one or two I had to send to the higher-ups. I don't recall. It seems like maybe I had one, but I'm not certain.
In the hospitals, did you have all of the equipment that you needed and all of the supplies? Were you pretty well supplied?
Pretty well, yes. Well, and then we worked around those things. You know, you'd have a ward that would have more supplies than another ward. And what I mean by wards is the type of patient. And if I was with the kids that were injured and they just had to heal and you had to change their bandages and things like that, that wouldn't be in a ward where they would have people who had throat problems and abdominal surgeries, and that was another type of ward. And then I went to those, and that was my favorite place, was where they were pretty sick, and you could give them a lot of what we called TLC, tender loving care, and that kind of thing. I can't remember just what we did to try to keep morale up, but we did everything we could.
Was there a common type of injury that a lot of people came, or was it just a variety of injuries?
Mostly a variety. And then some of them were a lot of basic training that we cared for. And maybe some of them had to have some abdominal surgeries, things like that. That they handled on the outside, and you couldn't take them in. And they did the surgeries. I wish I would have known that you were going to do this. I could have thought these things out.
Oh, you're doing great.
There's so much I forget. And I'll say, why did I forget that?
Why did you decide to stay in the military and make it a career?
I loved taking care of the soldiers. And some of them were the bravest people I ever met in my life. Some of them were lonely, that you had to help make them feel at home. But I love surgery. That's hard to explain. Some were very ill, and some you had to change their dressings and help them do things, and sometimes you just had to be their bosses, and they helped them get strength. They would mop floors and do things like sweep or do things like that. You had all kinds of jobs. You didn't just stand by the nurse or by the patient. You had to see that everything else was taken care of in your ward.
Do you remember a normal day for you? Like did you work a day turn? Did you work
You worked
during
days
day
and
hours,
nights.
or did you work not?
You worked all shifts.
Okay.
Days and nights, and then where they had enough nurses, you had a 3 to 11 shift. And but most of my nursing was with surgical patients who went to surgery or were going to go to surgery or had a leg off or had a damaged something.
Did you also take part in their rehabilitation, or did they move someplace else to do that?
Well, the really real rehabilitation, they had rooms for that. They had people for that. What they call them?
Like a physical therapist?
Physical therapists, yes. But that was back here in the States too. My overseas time was during the war. My real overseas time was Korea and Japan, and I've been in Germany, but that's much like United States nursing in most ways.
Did you take care of soldiers that had been in the Korean War?
Yes, but they were back in the United States by that time. Where did I go when I came back?
You went to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Fort Dix, New Jersey. I took care of a lot of soldiers back at Fort Dix. And then I was at Fort Lee, and they were getting better, and some, what do we call them, rehabilitations and that kind of thing. There had to be a lot of that. But we sent those off to different offices who specialized in it.
When you were at Fort Dix, was that a pretty good hospital?
Oh, yes, I think. How do you mean pretty good hospital?
Were the conditions good?
Yes, yes.
Do you think the military takes very good care of their soldiers?
Oh, they try very hard. There was very few times that I thought, get out of here, but most of the doctors were good, and they listened to the nurses. The nurses would tell them, this needs done, that needs done. This one's this sick, and this one's.
If you got the chance to tell the American people why it's important to support the military, what would you say?
Absolutely.
How would you convince them that it's important to support the military? What would you tell them?
To take care of the boys when they're overseas and when they come back. To take care of those that are away from home. Some of them are just simply homesick. I remember one fellow, I said, "What's the matter?" Well, he was just homesick, and he was in tears. But you know, it takes a lot of young people to cry. And they had to be very, very homesick. And they worked very hard not to be. And I didn't find many that said, I just need to go home. I got to go home. I just didn't hear that I can remember. I tried to be as motherly as I could and do as much as I could for them. And if they couldn't address their envelopes when they would write, I'd help them. But that didn't happen often because you were too busy doing other things.
What makes you most proud about your service?
The boys were until the very end, they were very good and very anxious to be the best they could be. And I was very proud of them all, away from home and young. The very young made my heart ache so bad. But I don't, and it was very seldom that, you know, a lot of them would come in drunk or something like that. Well, go to bed. And then if they vomited and messed up the floor, they had to clean it up the next morning. But I was just their mother. They just had to do it right.
Are there any special needs that you think nurses that were involved in the war might need today? Like if you were a voice for nurses who saw action, who saw a lot of pain and suffering, what would you tell them, or what would you ask for help for them?
I don't know anything. I think everybody, I think that they were taken care of the best that I knew at that time. And now I don't have any idea of what it's like. It's been too long since I've been out. Now don't ask me what day I got out because I can't remember. You people can remember that better than I.
Did you decide to get out when it was time, or did you just reach a certain date?
Well, my time was up. And what year did I get out?
1971.
May 14th, 1971.
She was due,
Oh,
she was due to get out 3 times and they wouldn't let her
I
out.
suppose I was stationed close by here. I don't know. And I don't know why I got,
Once was a Cuban crisis.
I wanted to get home and
Can't get out.
help Mother.
One other time
Okay.
was something else.
It sounds like that you tried to get out a couple of times, but they wouldn't let you leave
No,
because of maybe the Cuban Missile Crisis, or
no,
no?
no. Now, the missile crisis, I think I was out by that time. for the missiles. At least I don't recall missiles. Or being,
Any other stories that the family can think that they've heard that they maybe?
I can remember from Hawaii, you sending pineapples home to us,
oh,
to Mom and Dad. It was the first time I'd ever had a fresh pineapple. I was in 6th grade and so happy to receive it from you.
And going back to your brother Jim, who's my dad, I remember that he wasn't allowed to talk to you because you were an officer. And so
well,
you went to a movie and sat in the back where no one would, and you caught up on news in the movie theater where no one would know.
oh, I didn't know that. I didn't pay much attention to my rank, actually. Other people did more than I did. I did my work. I did what I had to do or what needed to be done, and I did it. But I didn't think about rank. But when you're in so long, it's like living on the outside. You grew older. And as you grow older, then your job changes a little bit.
What did you do after you retired?
I
Did you
don't-
just retire, or did you work as a nurse or anything anywhere else?
I don't think so. Not as a nurse.
You traveled after that? You just continued to travel, or?
Oh, I traveled some, and I don't know what else I did.
And Hattie, in 71 when you retired, then you came back and lived in Canton.
Yeah, I don't think I went any place, did I?
Well, you traveled a lot, like Kathy was saying. And you would visit Tony. And he was in the wheelchair, and
Oh,
Tony would come
well,
and visit you.
he visited, yes. He was an Englishman. He was from England. And he was injured, but he was injured here in the United States, I think, in an accident.
Hawaii, right?
Did you visit him in England, or did he stay in the United States?
Well, I think he was in the, oh, I don't know.
He lived in England, and he came here and visited you many times with his caretaker.
He was the youngest.
See, they remember these things better than
Say
I.
it out loud so she can hear you.
Well, I didn't think you wanted me to do that.
That's
Oh, we're-
okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Harriet,
Yeah,
do you want to tell him a little bit about Tony and how he happened to be in Hawaii when he was a pilot in the British Air Force?
oh, yes, he was.
You're smiling when anybody says his name. So,
He loved him.
Well, he was a joy to me. He always was. And I didn't even remember that I met Tony over in England. Yes, and he was very ill at that time, now that you mention it. And he was injured. What? Do you remember?
Yeah, he flew into Hawaii and he was only 19 years old.
Yes, well, the people from England, those fellows went into the services early.
He went swimming. Did he go swimming? He got hit by a boat. And he was
I don't know.
he became a quadriplegic.
Was it by a boat? I don't even remember that. But I don't remember how they got injured as much as how you took care of them and the care you gave them.
was he one of your patients? Is that how you met
Oh,
him?
yes, he was a patient of mine for a long time. And he was very, very ill when he came in. The fact of the matter is, I don't think we thought Tony was going to make it. I think he had a tracheostomy, and I don't know what all his injuries were. What were his injuries when he came over here? He came over here to see me afterwards.
He was in the wheelchair. He's
A number of
quadriplegic.
times.
I guess he was a quad.
Yeah.
He never did walk.
He had his own car, though.
Hmm?
He had a car that
Yes,
was
he
adapted
was-
to his injuries.
Yes.
See how happy she is.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about that you have thought of as we've been talking that you feel we ought to know about your service?
Well, I can't think. I think they do as best they can with the women. If the women behaved, like they grew up. Now, I think sometimes in peacetime, they forget what they're doing and aren't real soldierly, should I say. But most of the time, I'm very proud of the women in the service and the wars and all that they went through, as well as I went through some of that after the war, after the fighting over in Europe. And you saw so much. And you helped some of the Germans that were injured. I can't say anyone in particular, but I remember different ones coming in, or coming in to have bandages changed, or something like that.
You remember they sent you to Texas to go to administrative school there?
When I went to Texas,
Yeah.
oh no, I don't remember much of that.
When you came back, they were always short of nurses. And then the nurses belonged to a union. And by that time, she was not doing nursing anymore. She was just in administrative stuff, which she didn't like very
Right.
well.
Oh, that was, yeah. No, I didn't want like administration. I like to work with the sick, and did all you could for them. No, their bandages, and some of them were terrible, abdominal surgeries and all kinds of bandages and things like that. I cared a lot about the soldiers and tried to raise their spirits when they were over in the foreign countries. I don't know if I was a good nurse or not, but I tried my best. That's all I can say. I did all I could for the soldiers.
Well, as a former soldier, thank you.
And an
Oh,
Air
you're
Force
welcome.
veteran also, myself, so
Oh,
thank you.
We're both former military, so
oh.
we appreciate your service. I think we've pretty well covered everything. If you can think of anything else that,
No,
Okay.
I can't think of anything.
okay, well,
I-
thank you very much. I enjoyed your stories and
Yes.
enjoyed meeting you.
Me too. Now I'm not seeing very well anymore.
Well, I'm not either. I've got little glasses here so I can see up close.
Well, my glasses don't even do